Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Ektar solo cast. Tonight we've got a marquee matchup between Durotan's Couch and the Tiny Dancers, as Durotan's Couch are just currently sitting outside of playoff contention against the number one team in Tiny Dancers, who are the number one team by a fairly significant margin, so we're gonna need to see Durotan's Couch pull out something really special here in this series, because Tiny Dancers have not dropped a series, I'm fairly certain, and are the number one team with fewer games played than the team below them. So it's pretty potentially rough series coming in for the Couch here. Gonna go ahead and check out the map bans. We had the coin toss won by Durotan's Couch. They opted for first pick, as everyone does. So the Tiny Dancers banned out Tomb of the Spider Queen and Brax's Holdout. Durotan's Couch banned out Ultrac Pass and Infernal Shrines. And we are going for game number one to Volskaya Foundry, as chosen again by the Tiny Dancers. Just going ahead and getting on into the draft now, looking at Volskaya Foundry for both teams. The Tiny Dancers have a 75% win rate on this map in, I think, 4 games. And Durotan's Couch have played this a few times, but they have a 0% win rate on this map. So just going off of past history, it looks like the Tiny Dancers really looking favored going into this first series. Gohan calling out the dibs on Cho already, and Materium on the other team calling dibs on Gaul. So we're going to have to see how they manage to pull that one off. We've got a Tassadar band coming out, and Tassadar is not the most played mage on the side of Tiny Dancers, but he's the most played mage recently. So I think that's a pretty decent band coming out from them, and Deckard Cain is just a really strong healer. The Couch have a really eclectic group of players. I believe today Captain Wedge is actually going to be a healer. He's normally their offlaner, but I think that's covered by Gohan when he's here. So I don't know that there's a whole lot of target banning you can do on the healer necessarily, but you know, Wedge plays a pretty eclectic group of heroes, so we'll see what he can pull out in this series. And the Garrosh band coming out I think is really strange. It's not that strange. He's a pretty decent tank, but both teams deciding to leave up both Johanna and ETC. I would be beyond surprised if we didn't get a first pick ETC here coming out from the Couch. He's like by far and away their most played hero at 11 out of 21 games. Next closest is Johanna, actually getting picked up here, only being run in 6 games, but this does leave their opponents to take ETC available. Both teams have actually shown a willingness to pick up both Johanna and ETC if given the opportunity. So there's the ETC pickup. That is not a surprise at all. What is a surprise, I think, is AG Silver AG picking the ETC. I thought that they were their healer player, but I guess I could be mistaken. And the Kael'thas is super not a surprise. Kael'thas is tied for the most played hero on Tiny Dancers, alongside Anduin at 10 games apiece in 22 games. I would point out that between the two teams, they've played 21 and 22 games respectively. Durotan's Couch have played 41 unique heroes, and the Tiny Dancers have played 33, so a lot more of a core selection coming out from the Tiny Dancers, and a lot wider of a hero pool coming out from Durotan's Couch, but I mean, that's not necessarily a good thing. Like, if you just play 3 heroes really well each, I mean, that means you probably played them pretty well compared to a team that plays a lot wider heroes, maybe doesn't have as much practice on those heroes individually. The Malfurion coming out, I don't think Malfurion has been played this season for Durotan's Couch. That's not a huge, that's a bit of a surprise, but I actually really like Malfurion. He's good follow-up CC for someone like a Johanna who only brings kinda mediocre CC until level 10. So I think that's a pretty interesting pickup coming out there from Captain Wedge. The Maiev ban, that is definitely targeted at Ace. He is one of their more flexible players along with Captain Wedge, but when Ace is allowed to play damage, he plays a lot of those can just win the game for you kind of heroes like Maiev and Alarak. So banning out Ace's most favorite heroes a pretty common strategy, I think, when teams identify that he still has to pick third round. And the Anduin is the other, like I said, most played hero coming out from the Tiny Dancers. Lucio pickup is their next most played healer, so a lot of really comfortable picks coming out from the side of Tiny Dancers. The Varian is the only one that is a little bit different from what they normally tend to run. They don't run a whole lot of Varian. I wonder what they're going to do with that to try and gain value on this map. He's really good in the soul lane after level 4, but I mean, he can provide a lot of damage, and with Kael'thas you have damage and CC, so maybe they think that they have enough lockdown between the Kael'thas ETC that Varian going like C-Smash is just going to be good enough. We'll have to see. And going with the Leoric, which is not a surprise, he's phenomenal on this map for a number of reasons, and Chromie is Ace's sort of go-to non-hypercarry engage melee assassin type hero. Like if Ace has to be standing far away, he's probably playing Chromie. And Feldroth playing the Lunara, another very commonly chosen pick coming up from the side of Tiny Dancers, so I personally think I have to give the draft slightly in favor of the Tiny Dancers, just because they've got so many comfortable picks coming out. But go ahead and let me know how you think. We're going to have the poll coming out. Which team do you want to win game number 1? Is it going to be Durotan's Couch, or is it going to be the Tiny Dancers? I see Varian. I cheer for the team with Varian. That's fair. I don't play a whole lot of Varian personally, but that's because I'm a healer player. I play the other King of Stormwind quite a bit, so I would have liked to have seen an Anduin, but unfortunately he's banned out this game. Both teams rocking the full-on portrait synergy, so really well done by the both of them to make sure they have 5 matching portraits, both teams getting represented. But we have now spawning on the right-hand side in the red trunks for game number 1. They are Tiny Dancers with Feldroth playing the Kael'thas Fishing Queen on Lunara, Materium playing Lucio, Silver, Silver, Silver on ETC, and Liddell playing the King of Stormwind Varian. On the left-hand side in the blue trunks, we have Durotan's Couch with Gohan playing Leoric Big Eggroll on Greymane, Captain Wedge on Malfurion, Sir Noble playing Johanna, and Ace playing Chromie. Alrighty. GLHS is coming up from both teams. Gonna go ahead and check the level 1 talents. We do have Kael'thas going in for the nice, safe Mana Addict. Not gonna find any convection memes here. We do have Lucio going into the party mix, which I personally am not a fan of. I really like to see the smooth moves, giving you that extra movement and the health regen on auto attacks. We have Varian already in the bottom lane, so making sure they can get that XP nice and fast, and that's kind of what you end up doing with Varian, just because he's not a hero for the first 3 levels of the game. So a lot of powerful wave clear actually coming out and doing a lot just to soak minion waves really early on the side of Durotan's Couch. Definitely a lot of wave clear potential on the side of Kael'thas, but he's just not stepping up to do it quite yet. Or maybe they're just trying to make sure that party mix gets stacked nice and early. Wave clear definitely at this point going over in favor of the Couch though. Like Feldroth does blow up waves pretty decently, but just not quite as confident to step up as their opponents are. Twitch allows you to rig the poll because I allowed Twitch to allow you to rig the poll because I think it's hilarious. So that's why you can spend channel points and bits to vote in the polls, because I think it's funny. We do have a bit of an engage coming out from Durotan's Couch, invading onto their opponent's camp. A lot of damage going into the Lucio. Sir Noble's getting a couple of poison stacks from the Fishing Queen. ETC is in a really interesting spot. He might be able to get a big slide in there. It's a 5v5, but Varian doesn't have his 4 yet, so it's maybe not favoring Tiny Dancers terribly, but it looks like Durotan's Couch aren't confident on the invade, so they're just going to go ahead and back out. We have Chromie picking up the Anderhall Anomaly on level 4. That's going to allow you to place extra of these time traps, which is going to really allow Chromie to choke off these entryways during these objective phases. So really love to see that talent getting picked up. We do have actually a fair bit of damage going out into Gohan. Liddell kind of just winning in the bot lane, which is definitely a bit of a surprise this early in the game. Tiny Dancer's already taking their Bruiser camp. It's going to be started right now on the side of Durotan's couch, and I wonder if either team are going to hold the camp and actually allow it to push during the objective. Tiny Dancer's picking it up immediately. Durotan's couch, let's see if they end up doing the same thing. We do have the 4s getting picked up from both teams. Malfurion's actually holding his level 4. Does go into, I believe, it's the heal cut. Oh, it's bigger roots. Bigger, longer roots. And ETC going a bit of a strange build with the block party and also the speed metal. I don't see either of those two talents taken very often. Block party definitely more often because you get some pretty good damage cut with heroes like that Greymane, but I very rarely see the speed metal pick, so I think it's a bit of an interesting one. We do have the first objective spawning now. It's actually a taunt variant, so going with a lot of extra crowd control. Gohan does allow Liddell to get the original channel onto that, but is going to force variant out. Ace going to pop the time trap just to stop ETC from rotating in a little bit. To mimic real elections, I like it. So we do have yeah, just a lot of posturing, a lot of poking. Neither team really wanted to commit too hard in this fight. We've got the time traps that'll stop the tanks from engaging very hard. Gohan just barely staying on point here, making sure that they continue to get the channel over. We do have a bit of a charge coming in from Liddell. Gets the damage out onto Captain Wedge with that taunt and blow-up combo from Kael'thas. Big two-person root coming out from Captain Wedge, but no follow-up for it. And the health bars are kind of low on both sides. Sir Noble goes in really deep for that Condemned. Gets some damage out onto Feldroth as well. We do have a taunt coming out onto Big Eggroll. He's in a pretty rough spot. Does drop the turret before he goes down. Doesn't actually go down yet. Even getting the disengaged Dark Flight, which giving him that stealth. I believe that's what that's called. Eyes in the Dark. And actually it's the first objective not really getting contested by Tiny Dancers, and first objective going over to Durotan's couch. Look to see them just put a little bit of damage into this mid wall. Maybe try to poke down that very first tower and then just immediately start rotating up into the top lane. Liddell going for a bit of a charge onto Sir Noble, but not finding anything of huge significance. Checking out the result of the poll if I can. Manage poll. View results. Some pretty good damage coming out in there. We have Durotan's couch taking 92% of the vote with 24 to 2 votes. So good job rigging the polls there. Sailor Twift, that's what your hero's name is. Well done there. We do have a disengage coming out, the peeling roots coming out from Captain Wedge, preventing any real follow-up from coming out into Sir Noble, who I believe was caught a little bit without that D-shield available. So well done by Captain Wedge to provide that disengage. Big aggressive invade coming out here onto this Bruiser camp. Big Eggroll in a weird spot. Put some damage into Silver, but not going to find anything too significant. And this is the second time Durotan's couch have looked for an invade and actually haven't been punished for it. I'm a little bit surprised that Tiny Dancers haven't been able to find any value for their opponents trying to invade. At the moment, about a half a level advantage going over to Durotan's couch, but it's not anything that's likely going to be too significant. I believe both teams will have 10 about in time for the next objective, so having that level lead is nice, but it's not going to be probably that significant. We do have Chromie picking up the Temporal Loop at that level 8 period, so not sure who they're going to try and hit with that. Kael'thas at some point relatively soon actually is going to have the Mana Addict shield available. There it is. So he's not a fantastic target. Obviously you don't really want to hit a tank. Lucio can beat drop himself in time to prevent a lot of that damage, and if Lunara is good, she can use the Unstoppable frames on Leaping Strike to actually avoid it entirely. So I don't know if they're going to be able to secure a lot of kills, but just the extra cooldown reduction is pretty powerful. Might be able to just get some extra damage out with that. Level 10's coming in from both sides, and gotta say it's looking like mostly pretty standard. There was a call in the chat I saw for stage dive, but it is going to be the mosh pit, so really want the ability to lock a couple of targets down. We do have the engage coming onto Johanna, but a little bit of a lapse in that crowd control means that she's going to pop that D shield and get on out of there. Both teams playing very passively at this point. Like, there were the 2 attempts at an engage in the bot lane area, but neither team really committed to it. So they're both just kind of really respecting each other's ability to do things to them. I know that's a really vague way of saying it, but when both teams are playing so far back, like it's 7.5 minutes and there's no kills going down yet. Cernoble's showing, Liddell looking to try and get some damage, but just kind of posturing aggressively. It does force Cernoble to pop the Unstoppable, but he'll have it back up relatively quickly. Bit of a follow-up CC going onto Liddell, but being able to walk away nice and easy. Use that Protected by the way to step away from the follow-on damage. Although, this is the point that Durotan's Couch have to watch out for. Big Egg Roll does get engaged upon. It's a 5 versus 4. There was a whiffed Mosh Pit. Cernoble gets chunked out pretty hard as well, and unfortunately, without their Leoric, that was just a team fight that Tiny Dancers were able to take really easily. Cernoble's gonna back, and probably Gohan's gonna want to double soak mid-bot during this until they're able to get the full 5 on up here. We do have Chromie picking up the timeout, the extra powerful ice block on level 11 is when she gets it. We do have Silver coming down to match the soak that Leoric is hitting, but without that stage dive, or really any great wave clear talents, ETC is not probably the best hero for this. But it looks like Durotan's Couch are trying to get level 13 and take a fight on the point with that. We do have Gohan is going to maybe step in, maybe get those globes right there. Actually, they're looking to now try and take their own 5 versus 4 in the top lane, but the Tiny Dancers are not going to give it to them. They're going to back off the point and get their own level 13s before recontesting. So yeah, still just the one pick kill. Oh, but I really like this play coming out from Tiny Dancers. They get pushed off the point, they take their opponent's camp. What the Couch need to be doing is pushing this fort right now. There's only an ETC defending here. You know your opponents were just in the bot lane. They can't know for sure that their opponents aren't running up now, but they just took a camp. There's a good chance they're going to take another camp. So I like to see them stepping up, trying to put some time traps down, put some damage into this fort, and make it just hard for their opponents to step on in here. There's 2 time traps. I like to see another time trap in a forward position instead of this one back here. But we've got the 13s now for both teams, and neither one of them want to give up this objective. Captain Wedge in a bit of a rough spot. That time trap comes out hitting 2 allies and an enemy. ETC stepping in, does not have the Mosh available, but they find a very fast pickup onto the Malfurion. Captain Wedge goes down, and with 3 turrets dropped, really wanting to make sure that they can just take that point over in one fell swoop, and they do just that. Point going over in favor of Tiny Dancers, and they're actually going to try and pick up this biotic emitter as well. Durotan's Couch need to try and identify this and fight on something. Varian could rotate down, but this is really just Tiny Dancers getting this for free. Both teams playing really well, but the Tiny Dancers just making a little bit more advantage out of the wins that they're getting. They turn to kill into a lot of damage. They turn to kill into a full-on objective. Their opponents haven't gotten any kills yet, but they've gotten positional wins. They just haven't been able to find anything particularly great with it. It is a sort of 4 versus 4 in the top lane if you count the Triglav as 2, because Lunaro is actually split-soaking in the mid lane area. A little bit of a slow rotation coming out from both teams now. The Triglav is making its way to the bot lane. It's going to get the entirety of the top front wall and mid wall, and it's already down to below 40% health. I don't know that they're going to be able to try and go on the bottom well, which is normally the goal of the second objective, is to try and get this guy right here. Stepping up his mouth feels bad, man. That's just kind of Captain Wedge in a nutshell. If they're winning, man, he'll step up and he'll do some really good work. If they're not winning, he'll step up and get worked, unfortunately. But I think that's just about the end of the Triglav Protector. Yeah, they're gonna set it down and just get out. It's got 23 health, but it only had 5 seconds left, so not getting a whole lot of damage done, getting the mid wall and the top wall as well as the top well, but not quite what you're really looking for with a second objective on this map. Level 16's coming in now for the side of the Tiny Dancers, and very shortly for Durotan's Couch. We've got the Rejuvenecia. We've got full bomb build coming out from Kel'Thas, so going with the increased bomb radius into Ignite. So really looking to get that AoE damage, punishing Durotan's Couch for positioning a little bit too close together. We've got the unfair advantage, so there's a lot of slows and other crowd control on the side of Tiny Dancers, so Lenora are going to be getting a lot of value out of that, as well as the Rejuvenescia, so being able to heal up that beefy front line really well. Chromie just finishing her baseline, or level 1 quest. A lot of damage coming out on his Chernobyl. I don't think there's anything that he can do to stay alive. They're going to drop the Biotic Emitter just to get it down, but unfortunately that's just a pretty clean pickup coming off on the side of the Tiny Dancers. That's one of the problems you can have with Malfurion, is he just doesn't chunk out the healing quite as well as some of his compatriots. Good damage being done in the top lane by Gohan, making sure they can put some pressure into that top fort. They equalize the front wall situation in the top lane, but really that one kill is just allowing Tiny Dancers to step up and try to do the damage that they weren't able to get in the bot lane with the Triglav Protector. See Liddell positioning very aggressively. They want this well that they were denied during the objective phase earlier, and they are going to find it. Fishing Queen is starting to put in some really good damage onto this building. She does have Nature's Culling, so being able to damage anything that's not a hero really, really well. 43 globes up for the Kel'Thas. That's a pretty big shield that he's got there. Gohan positioning aggressively. He's going to get spotted out by Silver, but there's not a whole lot that Justin ETC can do about it. Gohan, you got to get out of there, man. He does pop the spooky form. They're looking to maybe continue to engage on this. Liddell is not quite close enough, but they push Gohan so far back that they're just going to go and, you know, roll over this fort in the top lane. So really well done by them. In the bot lane, this does get identified by Durotan's Couch, and they're going to take the bottom fort. So fort for a fort is, you know, pretty even. It's better to get the bottom fort going into the third objective than the top fort for our pretty obvious reasons. However, they also trade away a Biotic Emitter to the Tiny Dancers, so overall, definitely got to favor TD after that engagement. Neither team is really pushing up level 20, but we do have the Pierce on Chromie, that level 18 power spike that she has, which allows her to do so much more during these team fights. Popping down a couple of traps just to provide that little bit of vision, and just to make these team fights messy and awkward, because that's how this objective phase tends to go. We got a pause coming out. Captain Wedge experiencing a little bit of lag, it seems like. Alright, this gives us time to check on the item situation for both teams. We've got one Biotic Emitter, two Biotic Emitters on the side of Tiny Dancers, and one turret. Looks like, yeah, just one turret for the side of Durotan's Couch. How's the double soak? Leo just literally chasing you all game. I'm jelly, I can't soak at all. I mean, ETC doesn't soak the same way that Leoric can. You can take a couple of talents. You can go the Echo Pedal. Pinball Wizard does okay. It's not as good as Echo Pedal for Wave Clear, but it's pretty good damage. We can actually check out the XP situation coming out. It's 12,000, almost 13,000 for ETC, and close to 20,000 for that Leo. Really trying to keep him in the game right now. There's actually about 3,000 more minion XP for the side of Durotan's Couch. So really, like I said, catching that minion XP just really, really well. They're losing out quite a bit in heroes and a fair bit in mercenaries as well. Very, very close and passive, though, so. Lucio to double soak. He's super fast. Lucio's very fast, but he does not kill minion waves really at all. Slightly better than Deckard Cain, I would say. Canadian Internet. Oh, that doesn't surprise me very much. Wait, is Wedge Canadian? I didn't actually know that. Although I guess it could have been anyone else on the couch. Alrighty. So, I guess we can check out the damage numbers. Oh, there we go. We got the couch saying that they're ready. Looking at the hero damage, it's actually mostly coming out from Chromie, even more so than the Lunara, although the Kel'Thas chunking out just about as much as the Lunara, and no one on the side of the couch really keeping up in the damage department quite like that Chromie is. Greyman's doing what he can, but it's not fantastic. So we've got the ready coming out from both teams, and 3, 2, 1, pause. There we go.
Control it, and you can file it to protect.
But we're going to go ahead and hide talents, as it's not likely either team is going to be hitting a new talent here anytime particularly soon. It's going to give us that little extra stream space. We do have an invade coming up from the side of the Tiny Dancers. This is going to get them another item advantage. Oh, we've got another crowd control combo coming onto Johanna, but it's Johanna. If you lapse that at all, she is going to get that D off and walk away. But this is still a full level away from level 20, even from the side of the Tiny Dancers. Chernobyl caught out again, does not have the D-Shield available this time. Comes in late during that combo, and he just kind of gets killed unto death. Shattering Throw had a lot to do with that, but frankly, there's just not a lot that's keeping keeping the Johanna alive. Like, Wedge is doing what he can, but he does not have that ability to just save someone from certain death that some of the other healers kind of have, like the Lucio or like an Ancestral, just any of those big cooldowns that can save someone from dying. He did end up going the Tenacious Roots as well, so can't even try to use the Micro Cleanse that Malfurion can talent into on 7 to try and save him from a little bit of that CC train. And really, that's been a lot of their kills, is just find Johanna, put CC onto her, rip the shield off of her, especially after getting that Shattering Throw, and then continue to crowd control her until she dies. And there's just not a lot that the couch has been able to do about it. Wedge, Chernobyl, and Wildcard are Canadian. Oh, awesome. We've got a couple of Canadians on the other team as well. I believe it was Liddell and Silver that are Canadian. So between the two of them, they could form a whole Canadian team. Y'all should think about doing that for next season. But that is the third objective. The second one in a row going over in favor of the Tiny Dancers. Fishing Queen did rotate out so they can get that fort. Now they're up 2 forts to 0 and going to be looking at this bottom keep as well. Although there are still 3 people in the mid lane. Fishing Queen, Materium, and Liddell not following the Triglav. They're actually going towards the top lane. I don't know what this call is about necessarily. Triglav's just kind of dancing around, preventing Durotan's couch from doing any major damage to it. But I don't know what they're hoping to accomplish in the top lane. Like, Fishing Queen can put out some pretty decent damage, but probably not to take out a keep all by themselves. And that's just allowing the couch to outnumber and defend on this Triglav Protector, and it's definitely not going to get a keep unless they're able to find a kill or something. 3 people in the top lane is pretty good. Varian is able to sustain for a long time. Fishing Queen can put out consistent damage, but they're just really not finding anything right now. Gohan using the Spooky Hand is able to take out a lot of that Triglav's health. We do have Fishing Queen looking for a bit of engage onto Gohan. Does get the Leaping Strike, but not going to find anything other than that for follow-up. We do have the Intensifying Toxin on level 20, not going to be able to leap to allies, but is able to get a lot more damage once they do get those 3 stacks of poison on. Checking out the other level 20s, we already mentioned the Pierce. We have the Ancestral Communion? Astral Communion. Hunter's Blunderbuss, we've got the Radiating Faith and the Buried Alive. On the other side, we've got Bolt of the Storm, the original basic blink coming out from ETC. House Party from Lucio. That is extra healing for every ally in his healing area. I don't see that talent taken very often just because Bossa Nova tends to be the go-to, but you know, there haven't been a lot of blow-up attempts coming out from Durotan's couch, so I understand why they don't necessarily feel like they need Bossa Nova here. We already mentioned the Intensifying Toxin Flamethrower, so bigger range. Chernobyl stepping in, does pop the D-Shield, but gets immediately ripped off of them. The Buried Alive comes out, only really hitting onto Varian. Got the loot coming in onto Silver. Doesn't quite put out enough damage. However, they do find their very first kill via Big Egg Roll, getting a lot of damage in with the Cursed Bullet and Gopher and the it's not Gopher, I can't remember what his E is called. That's okay. Gohan slowing a lot on the opposing team, but I don't know that they have the ability to continue stepping in here. A lot of damage coming out with these Flame Strikes and the Ignites. Captain Wedge pretty dang low and could get engaged upon really easily by several members of the Tiny Dancers, but that was a kill that I feel like they really needed for a lot of reasons. It gives them some map tempo, which they haven't had really all game. And it's gotta make you feel a little bit more confident finding your first kill in the game, although there's quite a big wave building up here in the top lane. Someone's gonna have to back to deal with that, or that top keep is gonna go down. Oh, also Varian has the Glory to the Alliance, which is healing and health regen. Also cooldown reduction on that banner. Which banner did you take, by the way? It is the armor banner. Nice. Gonna hide talents for the rest of the game, unless I can think of a particularly good reason to bring him back up again. But we've hit my favorite part of Volskaya, the weird phase, where the lanes are pushed out mostly too far to step out and soak safely. And both teams don't have an advantage, and they're just looking to take another fight on the objective. And you gotta feel like that has to favor the Tiny Dancers. They have more buildings up, so they have inherent map pressure, as well as they're up 5 kills to 1. They haven't lost teamfights very much all game. They did get pushed out of the first objective, but they didn't die doing it. They had a variant, so you can't really fault them too hard for that.
A protector is almost ready. Access its terminal when I bring it online.
Tiny Dancers just sharking around on their side of the map, just making sure that they have pressure going down. It's still 40 seconds on this camp. They're actually looking for an engage on the Gohan. He needs to pop the, there it is. Spooky Walk, get out of there real quick. They're going to clear their opponent's camp really fast, which is going to allow the periodic catapult pressure to start building in the top lane over time. This lane doesn't have, this wave doesn't have one, so it will be the next wave that does have it. This allows Durotan's Couch to get initial positioning, and with the Chromie and the Johanna, I think this is really powerful. The time traps are a little bit far back, however, so they're not really stopping the Tiny Dancers from stepping in onto this point. Neither team has any items, so really just... Oh, actually, Sir Noble does have, and Captain Wedge have items. They should probably put some of those down to try and buy some space. Liddell coming in for a really good combo onto Sir Noble and rips off that shield, and this is one of the things you can do with a variant, specifically against a Johanna. They're used to playing with that unstoppable. They're used to being able to step up, get a little bit of crowd control onto them, and then just walk away safely. But with the Shattering Throw, you can really just stop that from happening. Sir Noble and Captain Wedge both really holding on to these items for a long time. We do have the Unstoppable coming out from Johanna. Sir Noble's kind of low. They really need to put down their turrets, though. Big Buried Alive coming out from Gohan, but misses out onto Lucio, who's able to break it down and get a lot of value. Huge Flame Strike coming out from Veldrod. Captain Wedge gets brought down very low. The Time Trap is going to save him for just a little bit. We do have the kill going out onto Johanna, a counter kill going out onto Lunara, and Captain Wedge goes down as well. Liddell is kind of low. And it's not... I don't think without a healer that the Durotan's Couch are going to be able to hold this point for very long. Materium, especially with the House Party, is going to be able to put out just too much healing for them to deal with over time. Gohan is going to have to spook on out of there, and that is going to be initial holding of the point for the side of Tiny Dancers, and they identify that their opponents are very likely on this camp, and they're just going to step in and take it. They keep Liddell on the point. He could come off very easily to just help over this fight if necessary, but Durotan's Couch concede the point and just try to get their reses back, try to clear these lanes, especially with these catapults building up, and just try to take one last fight. I say last fight because very rarely does the 5th objective not just outright end the game on Volskaya. Like, you can kind of just walk through a keep and the core without really being much worry about anything. Tiny Dancers are going to take the Biotic Emitter here. Gohan is in a bit of a really precarious spot, actually. They don't have the Lunara, so he can maybe do this a little bit safely, but if they just engage and put some damage onto him, that's damage that he ends up just taking and then having to use his E to get away and not able to use it to that damage cut. So, not a huge fan of that play, but didn't get punished at all. Tiny Dancers are taking this camp. We've actually got Fishing Queen taking this camp as well, which, again, I don't really like. It puts pressure into top lane, but top lane is not what's going to end this game. It's definitely going to be the objective. Big Curse Bullet coming out onto Silver. Gohan finding the Buried Alive onto 2. Huge silence coming out from Captain Wedge, hitting it onto several. ETC is so low, has to try and get out of there. He does. Liddell's very low as well. Fishing Queen gets the Leaping Strike, secures the kill out onto Malfurion. And you know, I said I don't like the camp, but now that they kind of lost that fight, I like this camp a lot because it's putting pressure into this top lane. Someone has to deal with that, or they're just going to lose that keep now. But who to send? They can't wait for Malfurion. He doesn't do anything very much. It looks like actually the call might be to just let the keep go. And they feel like they just have to make a 4 versus 4 fight of the play. Ace gets caught out. The mosh pit gets interrupted, and he is able to ice block out of there, but he is going to get just chased down by Silver. And going into a disadvantageous numbers team fight, Big Egg Roll gets caught as well by ETC. Really well done, and that is almost certainly going to be game. With those 2 trickled out deaths, unfortunately, and the trickle out going over in favor of Tiny Dancers. They did let this keep go down. I think that was the call they had to make, but unfortunately Ace just caught out a little bit too far by ETC, got brought down. Gohan in a bit of a rough spot. Feldroth might be able to hit him with a long distance flame strike, not quite, but 97% health on this Trigloff Protector going on onto a relatively undefended core. This is certainly going to be game number 1 going over in favor of the Tiny Dancers. So whoever were the 2 votes in chat, you were correct for game number 1. A little bit of a defense attempt coming out. Captain Wedge trying to do what he can, but they brought it down 20%. There's nothing you can do against that, unfortunately, for them. A lot of damage coming out from that Kel'Thas. Crumby putting out some pretty decent damage as well. Lunara was keeping up with Kel'Thas for a while, but it's hard to keep up with the power of the Flamethrower at level 20. Ace actually putting out more than the next 2 closest heroes on his team together, so... You know, Greymane doing alright with the Curse Bullet hits, but kind of not bringing really as much as I think you were hoping for in that game. Gonna go ahead and update the stream overlay, let everyone know that Tiny Dancers did in fact take the first game. Alright, welcome back everyone. What'd you think of that first game? I think that Durotan's Couch showed a lot of potential in that game. They didn't have any hero deaths for a very long time. They won the first objective. And I think if they just tightened up their play a little bit, they can have a really competitive series going forward. But man, Tiny Dancers really know how to kill a hero. Even Johanna getting just blown up eventually. Alrighty, we have confirmation that Durotan's Couch are going to go with first pick going into game number 2. So I will let the Tiny Dancers know that they have map pick for a second time. Looking at some of their past statistics, they have a really high win rate on a lot of maps. Infernal Shrines is their most picked, followed by Cursed Hollow and Towers of Doom. Between the 2 of them, Cursed Hollow has a 50% win rate and Towers of Doom has a 75%, so statistically, I think they should go with Towers of Doom. I really like that map, but I would also like to see Cursed Hollow because I know that they've done a couple of interesting things on that map specifically, but that is not going to be the case. Where is it? There we go. We are instead going to Shire for game number 2. Tournament draft, no match history, team 1. So I always joke about liking teams having portrait synergy because it you know, shows the image of a united front and everyone being really on the same page. But more than anything, as a caster, it makes it really easy to set up the lobby and knowing which team goes on what side. Alrighty. Shire, chosen by right team. And this gives me time to set up the next poll. Who do you think will win game 2? Alright, we got that set up on standby. We'll drop that poll later after the draft goes through, because... I mean, what's the point of showing a poll before the draft comes out? It's really important, I feel, to know what the team's draft situation looks like before asking you who you think is going to win that game. There we go. It took just a little bit of time for Sir Noble to get on in here. We do have a full lobby, 10 people in here. Give him the old caster R. Let him know that we're ready at home. And hopefully we can get on into a nice little game 2. I'm always hoping for a game 3. Admittedly, I'm also biased. I would have liked a 2-0 favor in Durotan's couch, but, you know. It was a good first game. Tiny Dancers played incredibly well. And my level of priorities is good games to watch, followed by Durotan's couch victory. So as long as we get some nice games, then, you know, we're all happy here. We do have the R's coming in from both sides, so we're going to get on into this lobby right about now. Oh, thank you, Ace, 38 minutes ago for redeeming your absolutely nothing. I had missed that. Big fan of those. Alright, going into Shire. This is a very different map, obviously, than Volskaya. There's a lot more emphasis on the top lane, so look to see the hero bands coming out a little bit different. Obviously, Rexar is phenomenal on this map. His win rate is really inflated because of this map and Braxis, which is itself banned out, so I don't actually know if Durotan's couch have a Rexar player. Let me check my stats. They haven't played too much Rexar, only 2 games. Their opponents have not shown a tendency to play Rexar either. Tassadar band's still coming out. He's an incredible hero. I love him to pieces, although maybe you want to respect the Kael'thas. Put in a ton of work in the first game. But what do I know? I'm just a commentator. Deckard Cain getting banned out, so identical bans coming out so far. Both teams feel like they have a winning strategy and they want to stick with it. Actually respecting the Lunara, so... I mean, Lunara did put in work in that game. I don't know if Lunara put in more work than Kael'thas, but maybe they just feel like they need to choke Fishing Queen off of that hero in particular. And final ban coming out. I was about to say, I find it interesting both teams leaving up the really strong tanks. So, if this is not a first pick ETC, I will be shocked and appalled. Durotan's couch, again, have played ETC 11 times. He's represented in some form or fashion in almost every game that they play. Either picked by them, picked by their opponents, or banned. Like, the popularity for ETC and Johanna is just through the roof. There it is, Sir Noble getting his most comfortable of one-trick heroes. I do think he's known a little bit more for the ETC than the Johanna, so I'd like to see him getting that role. Very quick pickups on the Zul Garrosh coming out, so I think that's an interesting combination, and it actually doesn't give anything away. You can run Zul in the 4-man or in the top lane, and he's good in both of those roles. Like, a decent damage dealer with a follow-up root from a Garrosh throw is really, really powerful, and he also just kind of wins a lot of soul lane matchups. Ace picking up the Kael'thas, which I think that must be their draft strategy then, to ban out the Tassadar and pick the Kael'thas to try and get the Tiny Dancers onto a less comfortable damage dealer. And the Stukov coming out from Captain Wedge, that actually scares me a lot, because Captain Wedge has a bit of a tendency, like I said before, to stand a little far forward, and Stukov, he's got a melee attack, so you find yourself just inherently standing a little more forward, because that's where you can attack from. Mayav ban coming out, I think, is really strange. I don't know that Durotan's couch have the proclivity to have Ace pick up a different hero and then swap into the Mayav later. It is a possibility for sure, but I think that Kael'thas pick is just legitimate. Ace gonna play Kael'thas. I don't remember Big Egg Roll's hero pool too much, but he's their other damage dealer, and I don't think Kael'thas was very high on that list. And the Anduin band coming out is... That's another respect band for the Tiny Dancers, not from the previous game, but for their previous series. Just putting out a lot of work with the young King of Stormwind. Well, that's just terrifying. So, this is a Bloodlust comp. Welcome to the year of 2020. Oh man, Zool already gets a lot of value with his auto attacks in certain builds with that sweeping strike. Raynor is great on auto attacks, and teams have played Zarya exclusively to give Garrosh speed bubble to make him have a faster, less predictable engagement. And Rhaegar, with a little bit of coordination, does exactly the same thing. You just communicate with your team, hey, we're going to engage with Bloodlust, so Garrosh can start moving there and then get that Bloodlust. And it doesn't give your opponent a lot of time to physically respond before Garrosh is in your face and in throw range. So Blaze coming out. Blaze is going to be probably their offlaner. I've seen them run ETC in the offlane as well, but I think Blaze is just a little bit better in that role. And then Falstad is their prayer against Bloodlust engages. I advocated for the Lily to finish the draft there. Falstad was this... You swapped onto Falstad from Lily. Interesting. I love the Sylvanas pickup. She does well with auto attacks because she's got to get 3 before she starts doing that extra damage. And just getting Sylv to stick on people is really powerful as well. I'm not sure how I feel about a Lily pickup there. I like the Falstad a little bit more. Just because I think it provides a lot better things on the map. It provides camp taking ability, provides wave clear. If this were an unranked draft, we would try it Ace, but I'm not super convinced. We have now spawning on the left-hand side in the blue trunks and blessed by the beautiful snowflakes. Durotan's Couch with Ace playing the Kael'thas, Gohan playing Blaze, Captain Wedge on Stukov, Big Eggroll on Falstad, and Sir Noble playing the ETC. On the right-hand side in the red trunks, they are the Tiny Dancers with Materium playing Rhaegar, Silver playing Garrosh, Fishing Queen on Jim Raynor, Feldroth playing Sylvanas, and Liddell playing the top lane, Zool. We're going to Alt-Tab just so we can hit that Start Poll button. We'll check back on that in about 2 minutes. Good luck, but only to the fellow Canadians coming out from Silver. Very nice. Lily is always OP, but she's not the right kind of OP here, I don't think. Ace is actually holding on to his first pick. I do know that he has taken Convection on occasion. Is it the pick here? I'm not super convinced. I don't know why he's in the top lane right now either. Maybe just trying to prevent his opponents from cheesing out the well or something. We've got the Reactive Ballistus boys. Ooh, big engagement on the Eggroll. The Lurking Arm is actually preventing the follow-up, and that is going to be first kill and Convection, by the way, going over to Durotan's Couch. That is a marked improvement from game number 1, where it took them much longer to get a first kill. We do have the new habits and season marksman coming out from Falstad, which is really interesting. I very rarely see season marksman getting picked up outside of Brawl. It's almost exclusive to Bird Box build. Sir Noble getting a nice engage, and that should be a lot of damage. Probably not a kill into Liddell. Maybe if Stukov had gone the low blow, but probably not quite then. Not to be deterred, however, Tiny Dancers are already taking their camp very, very fast before their opponents can even respond into it. Sir Noble is going to make sure they pick up that XP in the bottom lane. Did go into the Prog Rock, so making sure they want to pick up on those globes. And it looks like both teams are almost kind of trying to do bot shenanigans and double soaking. Zool is going to win that by a country mile. Ace going in, he did have to back up quite a bit. Gets a nice beefy flame strike hitting out onto 3 there. And really trying to play a little bit more passive until you can get those stacks finished up. And I think that this overall draft strategy has got to be favoring Tiny Dancers right now. Zool can double soak much more effectively than anyone on the side of Durotan's Couch. We do have Ace rotating into the mid lane to try and get that XP, but that leaves a 4 versus 3 in the bot lane for Tiny Dancers to try and get some work done. Also convinced that Stukov is Wedge's best healer. Interesting. Sir Noble getting tossed in, not going to have anything major happen off the bat. What's that damage cut that he just took there? Definitely just saw a damage cut coming out. Is that Sil? I have no idea. Or healing cut, rather. Silver in a bit of a rough spot, pretty low on the hit points, but they are outnumbered here. Their opponents are taking the Bruiser camp, and Durotan's Couch haven't really identified this. Silver getting a really good throw out of the fighting area. Yeah, I don't know what that heal cut is coming from. What? Oh, it's the body check. Oh my gosh, I hadn't even recognized that until just now. I heard Ace sucks eggs. Yeah, man. For anyone that doesn't know, Nate is part of the team that Ace and I are in a lot of the time, so good-natured grinning coming out from Nate there. We do have a throw-in explosion coming out onto this kickoff, and just a lot of damage being pushed into this bottom lane. This is where that double soak Zool value is really starting to work for Tiny Dancers. They have two people. Durotan's Couch have two people in the mid lane right now, trying to just catch this soak, and that leaves them really significantly outnumbered in the bottom lane. They're gonna even lose their fort. Not the fort. The well here, which will make the 4-man even stronger for the Tiny Dancers. Sir Noble gets tossed and body checked as well, and he's gonna be killed. You do have the visual bug coming out there from the Sylvanas. That'll go away eventually, I believe. But level 7's coming in for both sides. We do have Rhaegar backing, going into Lightning Shield, which is pretty standard, especially with an aggressive conflict you have coming out from Tiny Dancers. It's trying to get out of here. It'll get out of there eventually. But with this full wave and Fishing Queen having that Exterminator, and as well as these Sylph traits, they're just pushing a lot of damage down here. And Silver doing a really good job of playing either aggressive or defensive with this Garrosh. ETC tried to step up, he just got thrown backwards and wasn't able to engage any further. So, and at other times, you know, just walking in and getting a throw out into Sir Noble and then making him completely unto death. Getting a good power slide out of there, making sure Silver can't engage onto him too hard, but Fishing Queen is starting to take this camp. Durotan's Couch taking their own Bruiser camp, and they're about a half a level behind right now going into level 9. So, definite advantage in favor of Tiny Dancers getting this level 10. Liddell actually thinking about Hearthing so that they can get full up on mana, but deciding not to actually do it. There is an engage coming in now from the Tiny Dancers, getting an engage onto Captain Wedge. He does get the body check, but he's able to walk away. Sir Noble gets really chunked out and just kind of stands on the point and dies. I don't know if the Q was off cooldown or what, but really just kind of didn't have any abilities to use at that point. Gohan is going to prevent Fishing Queen from getting this channel immediately, but no one is getting onto a point to actually stop this from getting channeled over, and the 10s are coming in now for the side of Tiny Dancers. They pick up the bottom fort, and Big Egg Roll is going to get the interrupt, but takes a ton of damage for it, and this is still going to be probably for subjective going over in favor of Tiny Dancers. It is not quite fast enough by Blaze in the top lane. Putting out the focus into the mid lane. Normally I would expect them to rotate in the bot lane, but for obvious reasons they're not going to do that right now. Having more than a full level lead right now, Tiny Dancers doing a ton of work with this first objective. Gonna find a fort. Sylph trait to be used to ensure that, and they even kick Captain Wedge out of there for good measure, so that the Durotan's Couch can't even try to make a good engagement happen. Gohan getting rotated upon and is in a really rough spot. The jet propulsion just barely missing, and that is going to be a very dead Blaze. We had the 10s coming in for Durotan's Couch. They do have the stage dive, which I think is one of the signatures of their play. They take a lot more stage dives than most teams. We have the massive shove. We've got the combustion, which I think is a bit of a surprise. And mighty shove, and it is the Phoenix God Alar coming out from Aces Kel'Thas. Checking out, already at 15 convection stacks, so really getting pretty good value out of that so far, as long as he doesn't get engaged upon and dies. But that's all 3 forts going down super early in the game. Sir Noble face checking that bush, finding Liddell. Silver rotates in onto them, tries to find an engagement happen, gets the toss out onto Captain Wedge with the follow-on taunt. Good attempt at a disengage with the Mighty Gust, but the Bloodlust to run backwards, secure that kill out onto Wedge, and really things are all just going very well for Tiny Dancers right now. they're going to go ahead and take their own bruiser camp, because there's not a whole lot left on the map for them to take right now, with all three of their opponent's supports being down. Look to see them rotate into the bot lane and try to get this bottom bruiser as well, and with the healer only coming out just now for Durotan's couch, I don't know if there's a lot they're going to be able to do about it. Liddell is going to Hearth, but they can see that Blaze is in the top lane, so even if Durotan's couch do try to make an engagement happen here, it'd still be an even fight down level 13, so they are very safe to go ahead and take this camp. Blaze just trying to secure a little bit of room in the top lane. Actually, bit of an engagement coming out, finding some damage into Liddell. Gets pushed to safety by Captain Wedge. I don't think that's necessarily where he wanted him going. He saw the reactive ballista spores pop there, but he was too crowd controlled to actually do too much about it. You can see Ace still playing very conservatively on this Shoutouts, making sure they don't lose all those 17 stacks. But, oh, got a bit of an engage attempt coming out into Blaze, but not able to find it. Uses the jet propulsion to get out relatively safe. He does have the new Havocs available, so they can pop that unstoppable as well. Chernobyl gets brought down very low by Fishing Queen. Big Egg Roll does get thrown in by Garrosh. Body check coming in for the slow. They just barely whiffed on the Wailing Arrows. Big Egg Roll going to survive sub 100 hit points, but the invade is successful from the side of Tiny Dancers. Taking their opponent's siege camp away. There is the convection clear, which is really significant damage, but is it significant enough to overcome the level disparity that they currently find themselves in? Garrosh coming in, looking for an engagement, finds it onto 7th Ace. Good thing he just finished out on that convection. Otherwise, that would have been a really late reset. Gotta be thinking he's lucky stars with that right now. Feldroth does go in with the Wailing, the Banshees to try and get some extra Qs off. Do have some damage coming out, and that is going to be a kill out onto Rhaegar. They did pop the Bloodlust for the engagement there, but then ETC goes down as well, so a 1-4, ultimately 3 trade going very in favor of Tiny Dancers. They have just been in full control this game. Garrosh going in for an engage does get pushed away, but the root comes out onto Wedge. Barely gets out of there. Feldreth might give up a kill. Just kidding. They have the Banshees available. So Durotan's couch are still really on the back foot. They're about to be down to 16 talent here as well. I'm not sure what they're going to have to do to try and get back into this game. Soln really concerned about some of the plays that Wedge is making, and you know what? I can't disagree with that. I'm a little bit concerned about some of the plays that Wedge has been making as well, but you know what? He's doing his best, darn it. Durotan's couch is trying to clear up. I don't think they're going to try and make a play to try and defend mid. They're just going to take this Bruiser, and really, they're just going to try and defend down level 16. I think is the only play that they can really try to make at this point. Where are they going to go with this Dragon Knight, however? They could just try to go through bot and end on core. I think that's a little aggressive, but admittedly, it's not very aggressive. They're up level 16 for a very long time. Dragon Knight is going to go through mid lane, so try to poke that out. Maybe get a second keep, which would be really powerful map advantage for the side of Tiny Dancers. Not that they need any additional advantages in this game. They've really been doing a fantastic job this whole game. Jimmy is in the Triglav, so not able to poke, or not the Dragon Knight, so not able to poke out quite as well as they necessarily would be able to otherwise. You actually have the DK kind of playing like Jimmy right now, just kind of going in, poking a little bit of damage, walking away, poking some damage. We do have a big engagement coming in from Silver, but is going to take a lot of damage for it, however. Materium just barely able to keep alive with the Bloodlust and the Qs there. But that is going to be a pretty solid defense coming up from the side of Durotan's couch. There was like an engage attempt that came out, a lot of ults used for the Tiny Dancers, and they're not really finding anything from it. Durotan's couch are still down 16. That's still a very big deal, but there was very little damage done by that DK, so a strong defense coming out. Look to see Durotan's couch try to get level 16 and then try and take a team fight. Their opponents, by a very significant margin, are winning the race to 20, and if that happens, it's going to be a much more difficult game for Durotan's couch to try and close out, so I would expect them to try and take a very aggressive fight here. We do have, once again, looking towards this camp, not actually finding it. We've got the Fury of the Sunwell, not going in for the Ignite, even though they went for the Pyromaniac on 13. Chernobyl steps in, Silver does get the throw immediately. Got a really interesting backline combustion engage. Doesn't actually do any damage. I don't think it hit anybody. Blaze kill just kind of going over there a little bit for free, which is really unfortunate. Chernobyl being caught without a power slide is going to get rooted by the Bone Prison. And it is now a full-on retreat for Durotan's Couch. Materium getting thrown in. He gets the slow and the charge. Big aggro coming in, maybe to try and save Ace. Maybe. Mighty Gust. Not necessary, but they did end up giving over the Stukov kill as well. So they tried to find a fight. They just, I think, took it in a really awkward way with Blaze coming into this area and getting caught by himself. Look to see Feldroth dropping Silvertrait in the mid lane and just trying to force down this mid keep. I think it would have been a bit too aggressive to end. This map does have maybe the strongest core defense of all of the ones that were added in the recent series of patches. Silver finding the damage, the big egg roll, the Wailing Arrow comes out securing that kill. And with another trickle death, maybe it's not too aggressive to try and end anymore. And it looks like the Tiny Dancers agree with me. We're going to hide talents because this is likely going to be the last fight of the game if the Tiny Dancers have anything to say about it. Each of those shots from the core does stun for a very significant amount of time. A lot of damage coming out onto Garrosh there is going to be killed. Chernobyl is going to get killed by Feldroth as well. The Mighty Shove comes out and actually puts Feldroth into a really rough spot. Ace doing a lot of damage with that Convection and Powered Flame Strike onto Feldroth. I believe that was the either a cleanse or... yeah, it was no Will of the Forsaken to get Feldroth out of there. But a successful core defense coming out once again from Durotan's Couch. However, this whole time there was a Bruiser camp pushing in with Liddell doing it as well. A lot of map pressure coming in. And level 20s are now available for the side of the Tiny Dancers, and there's really no way I think that they can try to defend here. Thank you so much for the follow, I really appreciate it. I don't get to see it right now because my phone doesn't update in real time. I will get your name after this game, I promise. The DK coming out for the side of Tiny Dancers, and it's going to be an even more difficult core hold for the side of Durotan's Couch this time. Big Egg Roll does get a push away onto Fishing Queen. They're putting a lot of damage into the DK. It's already down to below 60% health. Before it even gets to the core, Fury of the Sinwall doing a fair bit of damage out onto the DK. It's already basically down, and there's no Garrosh here yet. Feldroth almost got stunned out by the core there. That would have been really bad for them, but that DK did literally nothing except push mid lane down a little bit. So really well defended by the side of Durotan's Couch. Man, if they could take aggressive fights as well as they've been taking these defensive ones, they have a real shot in this game, but their opponents are still up level 20, and it's still a long road for them to get it themselves, so any stray kill that gets picked up here could just end the game in favor of the Tiny Dancers, as they're just taking all of their opponents' camps and just putting pressure in every lane that their opponents have to constantly respond to. I wouldn't be surprised if they just run at the core and Bloodlust at this point, honestly. The Bloodlust 20 upgrade is so ridiculously powerful. They are starting to put some damage in. We do have the Mighty Gust just getting popped a little bit early. I think they felt like they had to do that. Ooh, we do have Chernobyl coming in. Missing entirely on the stage dive there, not finding anything. That's 2 ults for aggressive positioning. That's all that they had to do was just stand forward and let their opponents push buttons. Silver does pop the Unstoppable, trying to find a throw target. Ace in a bit of a rough spot, does not actually get caught out. Feldroth going in aggressively, trying to find some damage. You do have the combustion coming out, trying to do a lot of damage. Silver gets brought down very low. Chernobyl, however, is the second person to fall in this game, and we did have the Bloodlust come out. Did he not go the 20 upgrade? He did not go the 20 upgrade, went the rewind instead, but don't think it's actually going to matter, as those 2 kills are going to mean the end of the game for Durotan's Couch in a 2-0 victory for the Tiny Dancers. GG's and well played coming out from both sides. I never did have an opportunity to check the poll, as this was just non-stop action coming out from both teams. Let's check the results after the fact, see how you did, Twitch chat. 50-50 this time, 1 vote apiece. So one of you was right, one of you was a little bit less right. But that is going to be the series again in favor of the Tiny Dancers. Raynor doing quite a bit of damage. Kel'Thas almost keeping up, but not quite. and then really, again, outstripping anyone on his team. Actually, I'd have to. It's very close, but Ace doing almost as much damage as the next 3 heroes on his team put together in hero damage. So really good damage coming out from Ace. A little bit lagging on the rest of the team, but you know what? It's hard to do damage against the Tiny Dancers because they just want to kill you to death, and they've shown a really strong tendency to be able to accomplish that. So we'll see. Gonna DM Feldroth for a post-game interview. I do have the calculator out. I want to see if it's true. 20,471 plus 14,911 plus 14,874 is 50,256, so 255 damage off from beating the next 3 closest heroes on his team. It's unfortunate for you, Ace. It's very close, though.
Hello, hello.
Hello and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
How are you feeling after that series?
Oh, we're feeling good. We played it like we want to, and we executed. We felt pretty cleanly. So that's always a successful night for us.
Yeah, clean is definitely an adjective I would use to describe your play in both of those games.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so you were the number 1 team in the division going up against the number 10 team in your division. Does that impact the way that you prepare for the series at all?
Not at all. We play against every team as if they're the best team, and like this league is such that, especially in the latter half, basically all teams have taken games off of higher technical seed teams. So Durotan's Couch has proven in the past that they can definitely take games off of teams that are technically in the top 3 or 4 right now. So we took it very seriously. We did a ton of research and didn't make any risky plays to the best of our ability. So
yeah, you played an interesting mix of aggressive and safe.
It's a line we flirt with constantly, for sure.
All right, so
yeah.
Looking at what had happened in this series, you ended up banning out Tomb of the Spider Queen and Brax's Holdout. What's the reasoning behind those bans?
We hate Braxis. Is the reason behind that ban. Wish it wasn't a match that was included for the season, to be honest. But so that one's just a personal grudge that our team has. And then Tomb is a map that Durotan's Couch has a historically good win rate on that we don't have a historically good win rate on or don't care for as much. So we figured just take it out and go to some of the other maps which we're a lot more comfortable on.
All right. Then, so I guess then that Volskaya is a comfortable map for your team since you did choose to go there for game number 1.
Yeah, so that one was a mix of the facts that they haven't won a map on Volskaya, which is they haven't played very many, so that doesn't really say anything statistically. But we had watched their gameplay a lot, and we knew that if we could strategically soak and then also choose engages, that we felt we were better as a team fight comp, especially if we took away some of the key things that Durotan's Couch really flourishes with, specifically like Ace plays a really mean Maiev. Didn't want to see that. Really mean Alarak. We wanted to make sure we had counters for that. And then they didn't have either of their traditional healers this matchup, but they play with Deckard a ton, so we just banned that out because they do really well with that. So
I find it a little bit interesting that you noted that their primary healers weren't there, but you banned out the Deckard anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that in the past where teams have had one person that really carries on a particular hero, and so their opponents ban that hero out even if that player isn't necessarily playing that day.
Yeah, so our thought process there is, or my thought process on that front is just saying that if they have one player who is really good on a character, and they don't have that player, then maybe I'll consider not banning it. But they've had multiple healers throughout the season, and both healers have prioritized Deckard, which to me sets up a pattern that they like to play with Deckard, and they like the things that Deckard adds to a team comp, and it looks at, ability synergy and their way they like to engage and the way they like to kite backwards and all that kind of stuff. So if they're used to playing with Deckard that systemically, then I want to cut that, nip that in the bud. So, because I think that means that they'll try to prioritize it on whoever plays the healer. So it was a gamble. I don't know if they would have played Deckard at all otherwise, but we definitely didn't want to see it. So
That's fair. So in game number 1, you went with the double full tank with the taunt variant and the ETC. Is that a strat for that map, or do you just like having that much of a front line? What was that decision, if you don't mind my asking?
yeah, absolutely.
And if at any point these are
giving away our trade secret.
yeah, if you don't want to give anything away, just I don't need to know that badly.
I don't feel like anything that I would say would you couldn't find out just by watching our games. So we like double tank. We like a lot of other comps, but I feel like that's pretty meta right now. We also like the ability that ETC and variant together, and that match and on that map specifically gave us in terms of flexibility and how we divided our team up. ETC could stay as main tank, variant could flex into other roles than tank, but with the threat of Mosh, the fact that it's a small map, and the pick potential with a stun and root follow-up that we had on the variant taunts, we felt like we had a lot of pick potential. Also, against the Johanna, who's going to pop her unstoppable shield and think she's invulnerable, which is what every Johanna does. The fact that Varian can just throw a shield breaker and then taunt her, and then she's not safe. We can do the same combo on her that we do on everyone else. Puts a lot of threat on their team.
It's
so,
definitely true,
yeah.
and I don't know that they really responded to that particularly well. Johanna players, like you said, they have that unstoppable that they're used to having, but if the shield gets taken off, the unstoppable goes away, and the shield breaker punishes were really fantastic coming out from your team.
Yeah, we've so for a very long time, I thought Johanna was the best tank in the game. She's definitely really high up there. I'd say with Murden and ETC and some others, but I feel like she's fallen off a little bit, and maybe that's just from playing around it, where she pops her unstoppable. You either pull back a little bit, or you just burn the shield and then burn her down. I think it's just a habit that most of the player base has gotten into, that if she pops her shield, you should switch to someone else, and that's not always the case, because if your tank doesn't feel like they can step up, and Johannas normally don't if they don't have their unstoppable, then that's really valuable for the team fight.
Absolutely. Let's see if I have anything else for game number 1. I don't know that I do. You actually did end up losing the first objective in game number 1. Were you worried at any point about that, or was that just something you were willing to accept because you had a stronger level 10 spike?
Yeah, we knew we had a spike coming. I'm never really worried either way. Getting the level 1 or the first Punisher, it's super weak. You've had a success with the Punisher when you get the top well, which they did, so that was less than optimal. We wish we'd been able to curb that, but I feel like as long as you don't lose XP, then the first Punisher is kind of meaningless. And the exceptions to that are definitely when you're able to find disproportionate value than what the first Punisher normally gets. So we knew that they were probably going to get some wall damage and a well, and as long as we kept it to that, it didn't really matter if they got the first one. So. And then basically we just want to make sure we didn't die. So we kind of prioritize that above getting the first objective there.
And you didn't. You didn't actually give over a death for a very long time in game number 1.
Yeah, I think it was 3 deaths to 10 deaths, and that speaks a lot to their play and ours. So big shout out to them on that game, because it felt extremely clean on both sides, where we both were respecting each other's abilities, and we were backing off when the other had an advantage. It was very recognized, so it felt like a very high-level, intelligent, coordinated play, and that's always, it makes the game a lot more interesting, even though it may be a little bit more boring from a viewer perspective.
I like watching games where both teams have a lot of respect for each other. Like,
Yeah,
personally, I feel like those make for tense situations, not boring ones, but
exactly. I
weird.
totally agree. I'm tense the whole time.
Yeah, I'm playing this game and I'm stressed the whole time. Why aren't you all watching it?
Yep. That's exactly right.
So moving on to game number 2, I don't feel like that was quite the same case as the first game. It felt a lot more in your favor. Really, after the first couple of minutes, you did turn over the first kill very early in the game this time, but you were able to rally back very strongly. And what do you think was able to? How were you able to come back so strong after that first little hiccup? Do you think?
We just had to, get our Canadian in line.
I see.
No, he was excited to be on Garrosh and was a little too excited at the beginning for the first fight. We're just like, all right, settle down, man. That's okay.
I can see why, though. There was a lot of Garrosh happening, and it worked exceptionally well.
Yeah, we felt like we got what we wanted that second game, and I think it showed as the game went on. Zul's always great for the soak and the rotate, and as long as we're communicating well, and I'm actually a little hoarse. I've been drinking water this whole time because we were communicating so much. Then we're able to outmaneuver pretty easily, even though they had the false stab. It's that one of those things where if you don't have a solid double soak to match the Zul on that map, then you're going to have to send one of the 4-man mid, which makes the bottom engagement in the match we played a 4v3, and with a Sylvanas, we can take it like heavy advantage of that. We opted away from like a traditional mage in that one as well because we wanted a lot of single target burst on the Garrosh toss, and I think there's a lot of characters like that, but with the Sylvanas and a Raynor, no one's safe, not the tanks or obviously anyone else. So.
Yeah, so really what you're telling me is you just played a reskinned Towers of Doom.
How's that?
Double soaking mid-top and 4-man bot the whole time.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely a strat
as a
there.
retrospective,
sure.
That's really kind of what it felt like to me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
opponents did not seem to recognize that as a possibility during draft because they didn't have anyone that could even hope to catch up with Zul, so they were rotating people into mid, and you were identifying that and taking buildings or heroes or other buildings and camps.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it went very in your favor once you kind of got in the groove on things.
Absolutely. I mean, it's to be noted, another shout out to Durotan's Couch, that they made the drafting extremely hard. There were probably 4 or 5 characters that were a mix between meta and things that they played really well that we all wanted to not see. So it was extremely stressful to try to make sure that we negotiated draft in a way that we could either counter those characters if they got picked, or ban them out, or do all that kind of stuff. So kudos to them for that. And then it's really hard to match that Zul double soak unless you pick accordingly and pivot a strategy away from what we were doing. So it also felt like we had set up such a precedent in the first game that they banned some both characters that we had played game 1, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of banning some of the ones they banned in game 1, banning meta or banning some of just the overall good characters that we play. So them banning, trying to target characters that they just saw us play, gave us a little bit more flexibility in how we drafted in that second game.
Alrighty. I think about what I have for this match that we just watched. You have one match remaining against Jailbait. How are you feeling going into that one next week?
Yeah, well, like I said, every team is the best team in the league for us going into it, taking it really seriously. Obviously, they're our number 2 seed right now. I'm not sure how their match isn't looking good against Tricky Gooses, so it's a toss-up between them and Tricky Gooses for number 2 once it all shakes out. So it's going to be a really tense game for us. Depending on how it goes, they could potentially tie us for the number 1 spot. So it's going to come down to that game in terms of who gets the number 1 seed going into playoffs. So taking it seriously, doing a lot of research, and definitely a lot of respect to those guys.
And one final question. You mentioned that you've got, I believe, a pair of Canadians on your team?
We do, yes.
And there is a trio of Canadians on Durotan's couch. Have you considered
Really?
forming the two teams and doing like a U.S. versus Canada kind of a thing going forward?
I like that. I really like that idea. We've talked about creating a Tiny Dancers gaming a league, a legion, whatever you want to call it, assembly. So we'll just have an array of Tiny Dancers teams, and we'll have all Canadian. It sounds like so.
Yeah,
I'll have to hit up the.
call 'em like a Tiny Dancers North.
Yeah, exactly. Tiny Dancers, Maple Leaf Edition or something.
Ooh, big fan.
Yeah, that'll be good.
All right, that's all I've got for the question and answer part of the interview, so I'm going to get it over to you for any shout-outs that you want to give.
Absolutely. Shout out to Durotan's Couch. Great series. Like both games were just really good, and they were really tough team to play against. Shout out to you for casting. We really appreciate it. We always love when our games are casted, and a lot of respect and gratitude for you and anyone else who casts. So we encourage you to pick up another if you can. And shout out to the team. They've done a really good job. It's been a long season, and we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this, and everyone's still communicating really strong, keeping good attitudes and keeping their spirits up, and we all really appreciate that. And then finally, my standard shout out is shout out to our families who listen to us yell in the other room and all the time for no apparent reason and saying apparent nonsense. So we appreciate them.
Yeah, my fiance actually moved her computer out of this room, totally unrelated to the casting and gaming that I do.
Of course it's unrelated, but also good call on her part.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
All right, well, thank you for coming in for this interview.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming by and showing good games.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
You as well. Alrighty, so that is going to be just about it for the stream today. Thank you everyone for coming by. Thank you, Jacqueline Hyde, for the follow. I told you I was going to get you eventually. And if you like watching me cast games solo, go ahead and give me a follow. You're crazy, but I don't judge you for it. I also have Ace on here quite often as my co-caster, good friend of mine, and we like to talk about Heroes of the Storm together. We very occasionally do non-casting things on this channel, but really, if you're here, you're probably here for Heroes of the Storm content, and who can blame you? It's such a fantastic game. But that is going to be the end of the stream today. We are going to find the raid out onto Bahamut, because he is the second bestest boy, and he is casting a heroic game right now. So we're going to go ahead and push that start raid button and get right on up out of here into way better casting, and hopefully an even better series than this really good one that we had just now. So thank you all for coming by, and I will see you next time.